You know Mr. Terrific as the brain behind the Justice League Unlimited, but let's go back in time and check out his secret origins. This is a review for Mr. Terrific Year 1 from DC Comics. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Mr. Terrific Year 1, Issue number 1. This is a new book from DC Comics. I believe this is a mini-series. This is written by Al Letson with art by Valentin De Leandro, colors by Marisa Luis, and Edwin Galman also does some art for a few pages, which are the present timeline with letters by Lucas Gattoni. And a beautiful cover by the Leandro and Luis. You'll see when I show you the art previews, you'll see the very distinct difference between Galman's art and De Leandro's art, which I think really works for us setting up. I think Galman wanted to make sure that it felt like a more contemporary happening now in the world of DC All In. And then, of course, De Leandro has the freedom to kind of go back into the past. And I think that's just a very good job by the editing team, Andresha and Marquis Draper, of just setting this up. So, in this issue, the secret origins of the breakout hero of the Justice League, brilliant young inventor Michael Holt's life was destined for greatness, yet everything screeched to a halt when his wife, Paula, and unborn son were killed in a car accident. The Holts once shared ambitious dreams of using their technology to help others, but after the tragedy, Michael retreats from society and sells Holt Industries to a mysterious and craven tech billionaire, Athena Prescott. The domino effect of Michael's actions set off an explosive chain of events that take not so ordinary man from the depths of despair to the heights of heroism. Meanwhile, in the present day, Mr. Terrific continues to research what became of Darkseid after the events of the DC All-In special. We have a video on that if you want to go check out what happened. And also comes to realize that his past and the present might be inextricably linked. Discover all the secret sorrows and triumphs of Mr. Terrific and how he came to be. This thrilling modern retelling and expansion of his origins by DC Writers Workshop alumnus and multiple award winner TV writer Al Letson, who you may have, if you watch the show Monarch Legacy of Monsters, you might have seen some of the work there. And then, of course, Valentin De Leandro, who's worked on things like Bitch Planet or Black Manta. This is a really, really cool start, a really great start to a series. Mr. Terrific has been a character that I feel after reading King's Strange Adventures, really put him on my radar again as to like, oh yeah, this character is just like really cool. Like let's read more about him. And I think DC got the same memo because they really have put him at the forefront, especially with the Martian Manhunter kind of on the outs after the events of Absolute Power. Mr. Terrific is kind of like the backbone and the brains of the nervous system, if you will, of the current Justice League. So it's really fun to kind of go back and check out his origin story, which it is filled with tragedy. Like things get very tragic immediately, but I think the art really counterbalances that. I really like the art. It feels very much like a contemporary version of like some really classic style of art. It's hard to explain because it definitely feels modern and it looks modern, but there are sometimes those thicker lines and those outlines and the lack of detail. Like this isn't something that is ultra detailed or even trying to appear lifelike. It's very much a stylized book, and it's a very interesting style. And I think it really works just because of the combination of everything. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you have the present timeline, which is drawn a little bit different to really more reflect of the things that something like Dan Mora is doing in the Justice League Unlimited, right? So you feel that same issue. So I really didn't know what to expect out of this, but I'm very interested. I will say a story like this feels to me, especially the way that it left off after the first issue, feels to me like it's going to read better for me once it's all collected or once the first arc is completed. I don't know exactly how long this book will run. My assumption is that it will do maybe 6 to 12 issues, depending on how deep and how successful this series is. But yeah, Mr. Terrific, a really fun character. There's so much about him, right? Like this, on top of just being a superhero, this man was a peak athlete, and just super intelligent. So, like, yeah, Michael Holt is a very interesting character in the DC universe. A
So,
new arc of Absolute Wonder Woman starts here. And what is going on in Area 41? Let's talk about it in my review for Absolute Wonder Woman number 8. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we're going to be doing a review for Absolute Wonder Woman number 8. This is a brand new arc, part 1 of the As My Mother's Made Me storyline, after the events of the first arc, and then also Diana having to get out of Hades, from the grasp of hell. Here we are. This is written by Kelly Thompson with returning main artist Hayden Sherman, Jordi Belair on colors, letters by Becca Carey. In this issue, the Tetracide was a much greater threat than Wonder Woman had imagined for her first battle on the surface, but the Tetracide was child's play compared to negotiating the complexities of the evils of man's world. The mysterious Area 41 and its black box maze will be Diana's greatest test yet, and what she finds inside will shock you. This is a great setup for a returning story. I just want to comment first of all, I'm so glad Hayden Sherman is back, and I really enjoyed the artists that we had in between. But Hayden Sherman just has this way of drawing, especially Diana's expression, in a very sincere, almost naive way. But we know she's not naive. Well, she may be naive to the ways of man's world, and I think Sherman really captures that. His paneling is really outstanding when it comes to displaying maybe some of what we call Diana's rituals of magic and like everything she's doing. It almost feels the beginning of this specific issue almost feels like a bit of a Disney fairy tale, but then we get into the depths of maybe seeing some of Diana's reimagined villains. Specifically, if you're a fan of Doctor Poison, I think you'll enjoy the take for this character in the Absolute Universe, as well as some other characters, some larger forces, and then of course returning folks. It's really fun. There's always the tension of like some of these characters that we know are enemies of Diana in the regular universe, like, but they seem to be allies in this. So there's that tension of like, is there going to be a twist or a turn or a character betrayal, something like that. But yeah, I think the team does a really good job. There are some pages, like I mentioned, specifically when Diana's working on her magic. Man, oh man, Hayden Sherman just like goes all out. I can understand why any artist doing this level of stuff would need a break for a couple of issues break to try to get ahead on the art, because it is so complex, so detailed, and then just really building the world from scratch, right? I don't know how much Thompson and Hayden Sherman talk when it comes to here are the things we need to do, here's what we want things to look like. But then, of course, Diana is always there to take on the evils of men. So I love that they are really kind of coming together like this. Um, and as I mentioned, sometimes Diana's naivete about man's world may get the better of her. So it's really fun to have a challenge to a character that in some aspects seems all powerful, right? It makes things very interesting. The city is burning, and only the Martian Manhunter can get to the bottom of this. But can John figure out what is going on in this city? Let's talk about it in Absolute Martian Manhunter number 3. This is a review from DC Comics. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Absolute Martian Manhunter number 3. This is a new book from DC Comics from their Absolute line. Another outstanding issue. This is written by Dennis Camp and with art by Javier Rodriguez and letters by Hassan Otsmane Elhau. Very cool cover, main cover by Rodriguez, but then we also have some really cool variant covers as well. So if you pick some of those up, let me know down in the comments. In this one, we journey through the psychosphere. It's a trip through the psychosphere of Middletown's Newly minted partners, John Jones and the Martian follow the trail of whoever or whatever is responsible for the surprisingly destructive behavior of people across the city and even the world. Yeah, this this book escalated very, very quickly, but man, I will say the thing that happens to me when I read this book is that I go through it and I just get so focused on the really cool things that Rodriguez is doing with the art. Like, it is some really psychedelic stuff. There's it's like an explosion of colors, and what I really like is that it puts me in in almost the headspace of John Jones, which is like, this is what he's looking at. And I've been reading superhero comics for a long time. This is all new to this man. How in the world is he kind of getting through this? And the only thing I could think of is something that Dennis Camp is very smartly doing, is he's starting to trust and learning how to work with the Martian. uh you know Whatever this entity that is in his head or that is around him, or only he can see, they're finally starting to work together, and it's such a cool thing to see. It's very subtle because it's been building for a few issues now, 3 issues in, and we're finally getting a little bit more of that. I think another thing that Rodriguez and does very well, and I'm sure this is all based on Camp's script, which I would love to see how they work on this, is that sometimes whenever things are going well for John, he's full of color, but when there are things that are, I guess, not going as well, like his personal life is kind of a mess, unfortunately. That is absent of color, except for all the stuff around him, like the Martian. So interesting way to really display that counter how counterintuitive is that when things are going well, your life should be full of color, right? I think it should be an explosion. um I think Rodriguez has a really, really fun time with facial expressions, even though they're not very detailed. Whenever you do get one where you zoom in and you kind of really get in there, it really happens very cool. Hassan Osman El House letters are just out of this world because they have to kind of conform to this weird style, right? Sometimes the paneling is like not very it it's not very usual paneling. So like having to place those boxes in specific locations to make sure that you can still get the gist of the story in the correct way. I think it's a job that if it was done if there was any issue with that lettering, we would definitely be talking more about it because it'd be so distracting. But it just really works, and I cannot believe the stuff that they're doing here. Like the the difference of art styles that you see in one book here, it's pretty amazing stuff. Like, this book is so good. I don't know that it's for everyone, I will say that, and I think I've said this from the beginning. This doesn't feel like a book I would give to a new reader because they'd be like, what the hell is happening? But this does feel to me like somebody who's been, if you've been reading comics and you were looking for something new and different and something that feels a little bit out there on the outer rim of the comic book realm of the reading experience, I for sure would throw this at you in a flash. I'm also very excited to kind of go back and reread this once the arc is done or once the series is done. I believe this was originally a miniseries and now it's expanded, but don't keep up with the solicits. Don't listen to me there. Um, so I'm interested to see how this would read as a complete story versus the episodic nature of comic books as I read issue to issue. So this is really fun stuff. I'm in love with the Absolute universe. I think it's some of the most, like, just kind of, as far as superhero comics, just some of the most game changing stuff. And Marvel is also knocking it out of the park with their Ultimate Universe. So like, it's really, really a good time to just like try out a comic and make sure to see if it hits for you. Batman is in big trouble with Red Hood out of control. We have new villains, new allies, and a whole new secret reveal from Hush. This is all here in part 3 of Hush 2 in the main Batman book. This is issue 160 of Batman from DC Comics. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we're going to be doing a review for Batman 160, part 3 of the Hush 2 storyline. I know that's a mouthful. I know that's a lot. Uh, Man, this book is quite a ride. It's some interesting stuff that I think that. Oh, let's talk about the creative team, so I can tell you what they're doing. This is written by Jeff Loeb, with art by Jim Lee, Scott Williams on inks, and Alex Sinclair on colors, Richard Starkings on letters. So, of course, the main team from the original Hush run is back for Hush 2. Um, this is very, very convoluted. In this book, we have the gentleman's name is Silence, and his alliance with Hush will destroy Batman. That's not a lot to go on as far as a synopsis because they don't want to give away too much of the game, and I really understand that from DC Comics. Like, I feel like if you're watching this and if you're still reading this series, you're fully bought into Hush, right? You want to see a little bit more from what we had back in the early 2000s with the first Hush storyline. Jim Lee, I think, is doing some really good work. I haven't seen this level of penciling and inks from, like, I think Lee and Williams are just doing such a bang up job to recapture the feeling of that original series, but also to display some new. I feel like new tricks are coming out of this book. It's not, it's not perfect, and it's not something that I would not even be able to recommend this to like a new reader because it's like this is high level stuff when it comes to like continuity shenanigans and things to keep up with. Very convoluted storylines. I don't. I feel like this book derails or ignores a little bit of the continuity that had been set up in really like the past few years of DC All In and everything that's been going on for with Batman. But I think on its own, this just really stands alone very well. I believe this is the halfway mark of the first part of the story. From what I remember, this is going to be 12 issues total, but they're doing 6. Then we're taking a break from the storyline and then coming back for more Hush. But yeah, new villains. Hush has never been somebody to work with this many people. So that's pretty interesting, which leads the Bat family to also have some uneasy alliances, which is really surprising here. So yeah, this book is fully high stakes. This is, all gas, no brakes. That this is something that you just gotta go along for the ride and enjoy it. But like I said, Jim Lee doing some really good work, specifically when it comes to like some of the flashback sequences, showing us some like I said new tricks. There's a lot of big explosions, a lot of action, character redesigns. It feels oddly this feels like it really recaptures that magic from 2005 when it comes to the aesthetics. Um, I don't know if that's for everyone though. I don't know if everybody wanted to go back in time so far when it came to the art and the way that these books are done. There's some really cool fights, of course, because you have to have a lot of physicality in a book like this, and Jim Lee's really good at drawing that. And then, of course, you have these new massive, like these new sets of powers, these villains that Batman can't contend with all by himself. So it's really interesting. I like it. And even when somebody shows up to help, like, are they even there because they're trying to help Batman, or was this all part of Hush's plan? How far along does that go? So interesting stuff. I like it. I'm gonna keep reading this. I'm only in too deep with this, but I don't mind it. So, and infection of red kryptonite has hit critical mass. How will he be able to get through this? Let's talk about it in Superman issue number 26. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, the Summer of Superman continues. We are talking and reviewing issue number 26 of the main Superman series from DC Comics. This is the Superman Red Part 1 story, written by Joshua Williamson, with art by Eddie Barros, Eber Ferreira, and Sean Isaacs. I can't believe this book has so many artists, but it's really a great endeavor, and I think it really works out because there's different tones and different scenes that change in this book. This is all colored by Alejandro Sanchez with letters by Ariana Mayer and a really cool cover by Dan Mora. Dan Mora, one of my favorite artists right now at the moment. Incredible work. So, what is going on in this book? Let's talk about it. Superman is infected with red kryptonite, and after the shocking events of Superman number 25 with Lex Luthor and Mercy Graves, big betrayal there, go check it out. Superman is possessed with a new kind of anger, who will join Superwoman in protecting Metropolis from his rage. Also, Superwoman's powers are gone, so like I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen now. Will we able to get her powers back? Like what? There's a lot of teases of some of that stuff going on. Um, I will say, man, this issue is a little bit convoluted for me. There's a lot happening. Like, I've been keeping up with this series from the beginning, but the fact that we have a little interlude page to kind of catch you up on all the events of like Superwoman's powers going away and everything like that. But I think what Joshua Williamson does very well is capture the Superman's range of emotions of everything he's going through. Right, he can't trust Mercy after the events of what happened. Can he even trust Lex? He's worried about Lois because she's losing her powers or she's lost her powers, and he knows what losing his powers feels like. So he wants to make sure that she's okay. We have Lena Luthor, who feels and knows has been betrayed by her dad by giving her to Brainiac. And then, of course, Mercy, who's still in charge of Supercorp. There's a lot going on in this book. Like I said, this is not something that you could just jump into this one. I wish I could tell you otherwise. There's also a lot of, like I said, the interludes for like the things that are coming up with Doomsday and everything from the future. Uh, but if you kind of put all that to the side, you do get a very interesting story of Superman kind of raging out of control. I think Red Kryptonite is one of the more interesting ones because it's really a gimmick where you can make Superman do anything. Red Kryptonite always affects him differently depending on what the writer wants. So I think it's an interesting device for sure. But in the end, can Superman even adapt or overcome? So yeah, I think this is enjoyable. If you've been reading Superman from the beginning of Joshua Williamson's run, I think this should be very exciting. The book definitely leaves in a cool place where we're like, oh snap, we're about to hit the fan. Not we, but it is about to hit the fan. So it's interesting. I'm gonna keep reading this book. I'm enjoying the summer of Superman, and there's so much Superman content coming out. Not even including the upcoming film. So this is really interesting. I will say that the Superman and the Batman title right now feel like they are on a bit of a second level. Like they're not very entry level friendly, which is interesting because those are two other flagship titles. You will not believe who is back in the second issue of Daredevil: Cold Day in Hell. This futuristic tale where Matt has to save the world one more time. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Daredevil: Cold Day in Hell #2. This is a new book from Charles Soule and Steve McNiven. The dialogue by Charles Soule, the art by Steve McNiven, but this is a co-story. They're both credited as storytellers. We have colors by Dean White, letters by Clinton Cowell. Beautiful main cover by Steve McNiven. Before I get into this, I think, man, McNiven has reached some sort of next level in this book. It is unlike anything I've seen in his work before. It still has that big level of detail, but it's also feels just so much more refined. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what has changed technically for McNiven, but the panels in here, there's characters that show up, the design of these characters themselves, like the world that we're seeing, like Dean White's colors also really add a lot to this world and the mood and the tone of this, like almost post-apocalyptic New York that Matt has to protect one more time. So in this issue, the Daredevil has returned. The city's in danger, and a man without fear is once again swinging through the air. He will soon discover that he should have been afraid. Yeah, I mean, that synopsis really doesn't give you a lot, but man, oh man. The first thing I'll say, and I think I talked about this with issue #1, the pacing of this book is incredible. Like McNiven chooses, I really don't. I mean, I guess I would have to ask Soule and McNiven how they are working on this, but there are some pages that are just full of these small interstitial panel, like just these little panels with an expression, a bell, like just very little things, very few things that McNiven is just adding on there. and then you get like some bigger panels, just big splash pages, like Matt putting on the mask and Matt jumping off a building. Uh, the way that they are showing that Matt can hear things very well is because they really zoom in on like a mouth or like whatever the noise is coming from. Of course, after the reveal of who the villain is in the first issue, which I won't spoil yet. I think that should remain a mystery. I think, if you're reading the book, if you don't, I really encourage you to go back and check it out. Um, and then Matt reconnecting with some of his the crew, some of the people that he from his past. I think it's all really really cool. Like, yeah, I don't know. Reading this book just is so much fun, and it kind of sucks that it's gonna be such a short series. It's only gonna be 3 issues, and we're already here. We're already 80 pages into the story, and we're almost done. And I'm just afraid that it's all gonna come to an end so soon. But it's a really fun story. We finally get to see the motivation as to what's going on. But Matt's running out of time. He's running on borrowed time. So will he be able to complete the task? That's what I really want to know. But also, just I really, man, the character. There's so much. The story just really fits right into, Charles Soule. He wrote Matt for so long that he truly understands the character, his motivations, and even though that the current Daredevil is a little bit different, like this really feels like Soul maybe taking his own individual run and just putting it all the way to the end of the line. So yeah, this is great stuff. Mysterio and the Green Goblin team up in this latest issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Ultimate Spider-Man number 17. This is a new book from Marvel Comics, part of the Ultimate line. Very exciting stuff. You guys know this is one of my favorite titles ongoing, and I just can't wait to see where we go from here. We left off in a really interesting place last time around. So before we get into all that, let's talk about the creative team. This is written by Jonathan Hickman with guest artist David Messina. David's been doing a really good job of stepping in whenever there's a little bit of a shift of perspective in the story. And I really hadn't put that together until now. Whenever the story doesn't specifically focus on Peter, we have a different artist, and Messina has been one of the people that has stepped in. Although Messina's style is a little bit different from Chicharro, it really still feels like the same world and the same tone and vibe, which is very difficult for, and in my opinion, to achieve. So we also have colors by Matthew Wilson and letters by Corey Petit, and of course, beautiful main cover by Marco Cicchetto and Matthew Wilson. Some other fantastic variants as well, but man, oh man, time keeps on ticking, and the maker is coming back very soon. But in this issue, we have Turf War in New York, the Sinister Six versus the two Spider-Men. All is not well in New York with the Sinister Six at war with each other. Fortunately, Spider-Man's not facing this one alone. Can catch Richard Parker in the black suit. I think that synopsis may not be completely accurate because that's not what happened in this issue. The Sinister Six are definitely a war, but there is no such thing. Not yet. I think that synopsis, and I'm looking at the cover right now, so they maybe just didn't update that in time. If you look here at the cover for the next issue, then you get to see two Spider-Man. There's definitely a lot of infighting with the Sinister Six, though, in this one. We get to see a really cool Mysterio Green Goblin team up. So, Jonathan Hickman has been laying the foundation for this book. I can't believe we're already 17 issues into this book. It feels like I just started it like yesterday, like a couple of days ago. Everything still feels so fresh. There's still so much to discover and uncover in this world. It's really, really cool. I'm very excited to see where we go from here, and I'm very excited to know that the two Spider-Men are coming to help. I think after the revelations of the last issue, which spoilers for issue 16, if you're not caught up, please go check it out. Gwen Stacy being part of this Mysterio clan, or this group, or this cult of Mysterio, whatever you want to call it, and the Green Goblin, Harry Osborn not being truly dead because Mysterio saved them because that's his wife, and it's just incredible stuff. Like it was such a cool reveal, and then the way that we are expanding and really going forward with the story, it just really really works. I'm very much enjoying this. As I mentioned, Messina is just a great artist. Does some really cool things, especially when it comes to this big fight sequence that we see here, big explosions. I think the other mystery that we're still seeing here is Doctor Octavius. Otto is still in this book, but he's still pretty much not the most villainous person, but man, he just gives me bad vibes, and a lot of that comes from not only the design of the character, but the way that Hickman's writing him, like very, very matter of fact, very straightforward, and the way that he's drawn, he's always got like not so much a smirk, but like a smugness in the face. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you'll know it when you see it. And both artists captured Messina and Chichero really capture that. Which is when I started to notice that whenever we shift the perspective is when Chichero steps away from the main art duties to probably do some catch up or work on a issue in the future. So what a well put together book. Like um, you know the editor on the assistant editor is Michelle Marchese, and Will Moss is the main editor on the book. Doing a bang up job just planning out the details. I guess except for that synopsis that wasn't updated, or maybe it wasn't updated on the website that I'm looking at. But yeah, either way, this is a great book. I love this book. Every time I read it, it becomes my favorite book of that week. And I think this week still applies. It's just such a fun title. So Miss Marvel teams up with the giant size X-Men. Let's talk about it in this review. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we're going to be doing a review for Giant Size X-Men #1. This is from 2025, so don't go reading the original Giant Size X-Men. This has two stories. The first is the Ms. Marvel storyline, written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, with art by Adam Kubert and colors by Laura Martin. Then we also have a backup story by Al Ewing, Sarah Pichelli, Federico Blee, letters for both stories by Clem Cowles. So let's get into this one. The past isn't set in stone, the future is up for grabs, and history will never be the same. Just in time for the 50th anniversary of the seminal original issue from superstar artist Adam Kubert and scribes Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. Ever since she discovered she was a mutant, Kamala Khan has been balancing her previous life as Ms. Marvel with her role as a leader of the new community, but her conflicted identity has come at deep personal cost. Now pulled into the distant past by an unhinged villain with deep ties to mutant history, Ms. Marvel will witness the iconic birth of the Uncanny X-Men and their first encounter with Krakoa from an all-new, all-different perspective. But when history begins to change, can Ms. Marvel and the X-Men survive the experience? This is the first of 5 giant-sized one-shots, so we're gonna see more of these. So, even though this is one complete story, we're just gonna have it all spread out through different one-shots, which will touch on uh, different landmark events for the X-Men. This was really really fun. I didn't know what to expect. I'm also not current with the book with the Ms. Marvels in, um, but I was able to just kind of ease on in because Jackson and Kelly give you enough information to really just know what you need to know, right? Also, the beginning of this book, like the first 4 pages, which you'll see some of them in the preview, my goodness, incredible stuff. Like if that doesn't hook you, like you're not gonna want to read this book because it is just such a deep dive, great entry into the world of the X-Men. A very cool character makes an appearance in some kind of weird and different fashion now. Uh, so yeah, this is really fun, and of course, revisiting this giant size X-Men, the adventure in Krakoa, like that's just fun. Like it's just really cool stuff. Whether it has an impact or not for the future, that's not really my big concern. It's just really all about what's gonna happen here. Why what's what's going on with the time travel. There's a lot to explore here. So yeah, I really really enjoyed this one. I mean, Adam Kubert, like I don't know how you improve on an artist, but man, Adam Kubert just continues to like evolve and really amaze me. There's some really cool sequences, and of course, beautiful, beautiful colors as well. Vibrant. Laura Martin really adds another layer, especially with the time travel scenes. But man, there are some pages here. It's fun to see the relationships between the original X-Men and Ms. Marvel because they have a relationship, and then also her struggle with being a mutant, but also seeing her interact with the older versions of the uncanny X-Men that we meet in that giant size issue, which is one of my favorite teams. Like, it's just a really cool iteration of mutants. So that was really fun, and then of course her having all of this knowledge of the future and what really is going on. So highly recommend you check this out. It is a little bit pricier. It is $5, but it is a giant size issue. And then of course you have the backup story about a mutant that maybe never was. I won't go too much into details on that. I actually just want to let you dive in on that, but it's very intriguing. Of course, I mean, anything written by Al Ewing is going to be very intriguing. And then of course, if you have Sarah Pichelli on art, I mean, I don't know that it gets better than that. So can Eddie Brock fix this giant mistake from his past? Let's find out in Venom Original Sin #1. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Venom Original Sin #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. I did pick up a variant. This is the main cover is actually really cool, but I ended up picking up this variant, which is still really amazing. But I mean, Clayton Crane he's one of my favorite cover artists. But this book is written by Steve Orlando with art by Scott Koblish and Matt Horak. Colors by Yen Nitro and letters by Travis Lanham. In this book, Eddie Brock has become the King in Black, with power over all symbiote kind through space and time. Could you blame him for wanting to use that power to go back to the time when Peter Parker wore the symbiote and fix a terrible moment in his past? Unfortunately, one small change can make ripples that can destroy a world, and Eddie needs to use his great power to put right what he has put wrong. I'm going to start with saying this is a very convoluted story. There's a lot going on, especially because you kind of get thrown into the mix immediately. This is also it's a larger issue. It's about 56 pages or so. So it is $6.99. So keep that in mind as well. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, right? There's a lot of Eddie. There's a lot of things happening, but man, it just felt to me like this story was very dense, a little impenetrable, especially for new readers. Like I've been keeping up with Eddie's history for the past few years, dipping in and out of any Venom books, and I just feel like this was a little bit of a challenge to just get a hold of what was happening, because there's so much, right? Eddie and Venom have been through so much over the past decade or so, and just trying to use a lot of that. But I think Steve Orlando definitely has a very interesting concept that the team is trying to reach at the core of this. The art duties split up into two makes a lot of sense, because not only, I mean, there's a lot of pages here, but also we're seeing different times, different eras of Eddie, and it really needs that specific different feel. But both artists really managed to capture the essence of what I think Eddie Brock and kind of his angst and his anguish that he's going through. But also just like Venom has to look cool on a book. And then seeing Spider-Man in the black suit is also a plus. You'll see some of the preview art scrolling around throughout here. But I think this was an interesting book. I'm going to try to revisit this once it's collected, but I did want to pick up the first issue just to be able to talk about it here on the channel with you guys. Not something that I'll put at the top of my pile right now, just because there's so much to read, and you sometimes really have to prioritize your reading. But definitely something that if you are a longtime Venom fan, you're gonna want to check out, because there's a lot of deep cuts that I think are very interesting. What if Batman turned into a werewolf? Let's talk about it as I review Batman Full Moon. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman Full Moon. This is a 4-issue miniseries from DC Comics under the Black Label series. This series delves into a supernatural horror featuring Batman facing off against a formidable werewolf threat in Gotham City. This is written by Eisner-nominated writer Rodney Barnes, known for Philadelphia and other various titles, marking his DC Comics debut. Also features the work of celebrated and acclaimed artist Stepan Subic, who you may know best from The Riddler Year One. Also, each of these issues featured a main glow-in-the-dark cover by Subic himself, and of course, a lot of really other cool variant covers. But when I was picking this up, and I picked this up on a monthly basis, uh, I was very excited for the glow-in-the-dark covers, and they did not disappoint. Like on their own, just as a black and white cover, they look great. Subic is a fantastic artist, and we'll get into all that. But yeah, I really love the idea of I'm a sucker for a gimmick, a blind bag, glow in the dark, foil, lenticular, whatever kind of gimmick you're giving me in a cover. I'm a sucker for it. But I was very well rewarded because the inside of this book, the story itself, it's also very good. So we're gonna talk about it. I will get a little bit into spoilers later on, but overall, the story, like I mentioned, a werewolf has come to Gotham, and Batman has to take on that menace. But what happens when Batman himself falls victim to a werewolf bite? Now he has to confront his own inner demons and possibly becoming the monster that he is hunting. Um, he enlists the help of many of his allies, including Satana and John Constantine, and also a surprising appearance by Dr. Langstrom, who you may know more as Man Bat. This was a really, really cool idea. I reviewed the first issue when it came out originally, but I knew, and I might have mentioned this in my review, this was always going to be better as a complete story. I think that Barnes has a lot to explore, including themes of pain, redemption. There's obviously always the moral complexities of Batman's one rule of no killing, which against a werewolf that poses a problem because you can either capture a werewolf, you can either try to cure a werewolf, or you can destroy a werewolf. There's not a lot of options, especially when now you are also afflicted with that same with that same curse. So wasn't just a big test for Batman physically, but also psychologically, and it really all kind of culminates into a choice of self-sacrifice or having to compromise, your values and your ethics. And I think that Batman really had to turn to those around him for help with this matter. So um, I think overall, I'm a big fan of Subic, and his work is fantastic when it comes to building this haunting atmospheric quality, really effectively capturing elements of horror in this story. I think the use of shadows and texture really contributes to a sense of eeriness, very reminiscent of like the classic horror comics of old, right? Like those old tales or horror stories. I think the gimmick of the glow in the dark really just more thematically resonates with the full moon and the light and everything, like all those visual components. It really just brings out and blends in very well with the supernatural. Um, I've heard that Subic's art is not for everyone, and I definitely understand that. I feel like it can be not only very violent, and definitely there's a lot on those pages, but also can be a little abstract, where maybe there's not as much, there's not full background. He's not setting out to build a world. He's just trying to set out and build an atmosphere, and I think that's what really worked for me, and it really resonated with me. Like there's never a lot going into details, into maybe some of the more refined pieces of a composition, but for me it really works. So I'm a big fan of Subic, especially after reading his debut over at with the Riddler Year One storyline. Now the story itself, before I get into spoilers, the story itself, I really enjoyed the idea of having these conflicting feelings, I think Barnes sets out a very interesting dilemma and a quandary for Batman. Like I mentioned, not just a physical test of his endurance and his battle prowess, but also just really exploring like how can Batman compromise? How he wants to help this werewolf. He wants to stop the werewolf. That's the main thing that he needs to do, and he's going to need a lot of help for that. You know, even turning to someone like Dr. Langstrom, who himself has been a villain of Batman in the past. So they definitely have a complicated relationship. There's also the complicated relationship of in this book, Batman is currently dating or at least courting Zatanna, who has a very messy past with John Constantine. So there's also kind of the love triangle dynamic. But what really surprised me was Christian, the werewolf himself. There are some people that try to help him out just in Gotham overall, and just really introducing that other aspect of like people want to help people that are down on their luck. Uh, and also sometimes this leads to them being in the way of danger, right? Yeah, I think there's a lot to explore here for 4 issues. It does feel a little bit rushed towards the end to try to get to the end of the story. I almost wish this had been 5 issues. I feel like it would have breathed a little better. Now these are a little bit longer than normal. These are over 22 pages for sure. I believe they're 32 pages each of the issues. I don't remember now that I read this digitally now through the app because I don't want to go hunt down my original issues. But yeah, I think overall this really works. The hardcover is very nice. I need to go chase that down. And I think just introducing really cool characters or bringing in characters like Zatanna and Constantine and Langstrom, and of course Alfred Pennyworth, who is currently not alive in the main DC universe. It all adds for a very cool book with a lot of fun ideas, and it's just a very entertaining read. I read through this very quickly. Like once I got into it, I couldn't stop. So that's kind of what motivated me to make this video. Even though I don't have my hardcover yet, I wish I had it with me to see what other little details or back matter they've decided to add for it, because I think DC and the team that puts together their collections, specifically the hardcovers, they do a very good job of not just designing the book but also giving you a little bit extra for those that want to do that. So let's go through what happened in the book. So these are now full spoilers. So if you're just here for the story of what happens, we're gonna get into it. We begin episode 1 or issue number 1 with the wolf Christian escaping from Wayne Pharmaceuticals. So it appears that he was at Wayne Pharmaceuticals to get help from this to cure him from his lycanthropy curse. He kills a lot of people in a very violent manner. He ends up scratching at Batman, which is how Batman gets infected. We dive a little bit into the curse of the werewolf. We see that Dr. Langstrom shows up, and then we also throughout this we see Batman or Bruce talking to Zatanna because they had a date and he kind of stood her up. And then we also see that Constantine shows up to help. In issue number 2, we go deeper into the curse of the werewolf. We actually kind of flash back to try to understand where it comes from. Batman doesn't believe in the wolf curse though. Like he tries to rationalize this with science. In the meanwhile, this is where we meet a little bit more of Christian, who becomes the wolf, who tries to lock himself up. Right, he tries to stop himself from continuing to give in to this urge. We get a lot of narration from Christian as he's struggling with this curse himself. Zatanna looks for a magic cure, while Langstrom is looking for a science-based cure. But Batman ultimately transforms into a werewolf himself, and now the wolves collide, and that's kind of how we end that first issue. On issue number 3, we get a flashback to Zatanna and John fighting some demons in Louisiana, just to kind of explore a little bit more of their relationship, especially if you're somebody that hasn't read a lot of these characters. We get Batman versus the Christian Wolf or Christian the Wolf. It's a really cool battle. I think Subek is where Subek's artwork really, really shines. Langstrom transforms into the Man Bat to try to help, but there's a lot of chaos. They barely escape. They get Batman back, lock him up, and then the next day, they figure out that Christian is going to Romania, where he was originally cursed. So that's where everyone kind of heads out. And this is the part that felt a little bit more rushed to me. Once in Romania, Christian finally embraces his curse after uh, talking to someone and understanding that the curse is not going to go away. This is not something that he can get rid of. Batman shows up in his werewolf form as well. They fight. Zatanna seeks help, and also, how to get away from this big fight. Ultimately, Zatanna ends up having this thing that kills Christian. So in the aftermath of that, Batman is cured because the person that turned him, like, now the curse is gone, so his curse is also gone, which is an interesting kind of twist on the werewolf mythos. Normally the werewolf just kind of continues, right, until they're dead, and then of course Batman does go back and help the people that originally helped Christian while he was down on his luck. So yeah, this was very interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. Like I mentioned, there is now a hardcover collection of the series. It was released on the 13th of May of 2025, whenever you're watching this video. And also, you can probably already check this out out of Hoopla through your library, or maybe even just go check your physical library. Maybe you can borrow the book there. But this was great. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you did as well. So if you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And stay tuned because we have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.